Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. This is Joel with Inflatable Office, and just going to give you a quick preview of the release we have planned for tomorrow so you can be prepared for it. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments there on Facebook, or if you have one after the video's done being live, you can just email them in to support@inflatableoffice.com or use our support site, which is just inflatableoffice.com/support. So this is the notes that we have planned for the release, and things are still subject to change, but probably not significantly after this. So yeah, I'm just going to go through them real quick. And yeah, so the first thing here we have is leads. Optional fields now support the date type, which also you can use in filters. So this one is really cool. So to add it, you would go over to Settings, Optional Fields, scroll to the bottom and hit Edit. And now you can add a new one of type of date. So let's say we want to use due date. Show it on the lead. We have the type set to date. That's it. You hit Save. And now you can go back to a lead. Oops. Let's do this one here. If you edit it, you'll have an option on here for the date. So let's say that we give someone a contract or a quote, and we are reserving the inventory for 1 week, and we expect them to make a deposit or something like that. So we can set that as our due date. And now that'll allow us to run filters on it. So you'll see it'll come up here, and you can say anything that's past the due date, you can make a filter here for that, and then just check it every day. This one, for it to show up, I'd have to have it be in the future, but whoops. So here, this one has now been included in the filter because the due date is in the next 30 days. So you can then save those and have filters to run on them. Let's take a look at the next thing here. So we added 2 permissions for the workers. Allowing them to control whether or not they have permissions for modifying payments and adding payments. And the other one is for access to exporting things. So let's take a look at the first one here. So we already had one on here for, do they have the ability to delete a payment? So this one here, the new one is lead payments, and this would be the ability to allow them to add or edit payments. So if they had access to the leads already by default, I believe that it would be set to on here, since that's what the permission they already had was. But if you want to control who has access to be able to add or update payments, you can now. And even if they do have permission for those things, the details of what they've changed would still show up in the log tab of those leads. So you'd still have kind of a history of changes made. The other permissions were related to exporting. So customer exports, you can now turn on or off those. And again, if they had access to the customers here, then they're gonna by default have access to customer export. So you'd have to come in here and turn them off if you wanted to prevent workers from being able to do that. So we have customer export here. We have lead export. And the other one was at the bottom here, workers export. And so when I'm talking about workers here, I'm talking about this particular tab, and down here there's the export button. So if they don't have permission, it would just say permission denied. Same thing on the customers one. We have an export button down here. You can now restrict. And on the leads one, it's a little different. They have to first have made a report, but then they can use this export button, or let's take a look here to report. The download CSV button would work. So they would still be able to run reports like this and look at the data. It's just that the export part of it would be disabled. Okay. So you'll notice that we've kind of worked on expanding the screen a little bit to take up more space. And this is just in preparation for design changes that we're making to the back end over the next year to make it more mobile friendly and easier to use. So should be helpful in the meantime. IO phone added duration to voicemail alert. So this is not real significant, but we transcribe all of the voicemails that come in. You get an email alert whenever someone leaves a voicemail, and now it just includes the duration of that voicemail. So, and the last big thing here is we have a lot of changes here for vendors. So here I have vendor columns added to custom reports. We added alerts when a purchase order is signed. You can activate that under settings alerts. Added a section under overview for vendors. So let's take a look at that one. So under overview, there's now a section down here called vendors, and you'll be able to see purchase orders that still need signed, the upcoming schedule for them, any events that are canceled that have vendors on it, so that you can let them know, and just kind of a list of things that are being rented out for vendors. So the report part of it that I had mentioned earlier, you can see under customize report, there's now columns for vendor related things. So I've actually set one up here already for this vendor report. And so I added the lead date, the rental information, and then all those vendor columns. So when we run a report, we'll be able to see all the things that were rented for a vendor. So if right now it's showing all of my events and also the vendor stuff. So if I wanted to filter farther, so if I want to run a report that only has vendor stuff, then I could say vendors all. It's vendor all. Now it's only showing the ones that have a vendor item on it. I don't want to see the canceled one, and maybe I only want to see upcoming ones. So we'll say the next 365 days. Now when I run that report, it's only going to include just the vendor stuff. Okay, let me see if I missed anything else. Yes, vendors to the calendar. So we added this as well on the calendar. There's now an option for vendors. So you'll be able to see the events on this calendar screen. And I think that was the main things I wanted to go over today. There's obviously a number of bug fixes that are not super significant, but hopefully, it'll work better for you. We're always trying to improve, and we're committed to making this software the best feature and automated software we can. So at this point, I'm going to go through any questions you have. You can leave them in the comments there. And again, if don't get to them today, you can always email them in. All right, I'm not seeing any questions today on this release. So again, just thanks for joining me today, and hopefully this will be helpful for you guys. And looking forward to next time. Thanks.